As a former dancer returning to the art form 3 decades later, I have a very unique perspective, a unique sort of window into the past and the present. Much, much more so than somebody who never quit dance, never left dance. You know there's changes, but they don't smack you in the face the way they did with me. And I often talk about these changes in dance, whether it be in the classroom or the industry, on my social media, in bite sized chunks, if you will. This podcast is super exciting because it allows me to go deeper. And this is one of the areas I do want to explore more on the podcast. Changes in dance. And today will be one such topic. We're going to be covering cheering, hollering, screaming in the classroom, especially when you're watching groups. This was not a thing back in the day. So before we unravel this, please take a moment, if you may, if you can, to like my show, follow. No, like is the wrong word. Like is more for just YouTube, right? Or maybe Instagram. But follow the show and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. Rate, review, comment, share. All those things really help. It goes a huge, long, long, long way. So thank you very much. Now, let's get to it. Now, I have posted about this topic a few times, and each time it's kind of gone mini viral. One time it got over 100,000 views, then it got 200,000 views, then another time 250K. So I don't mention numbers in any braggadocious way. It's really to illustrate that this topic resonates. People are drawn to it. They from both sides, the pros and the cons. Speaking of which, I thought the best way to really break this down and give, the pros and cons would be to mention what the people are saying. So first, I did put a poll under one of those videos and it got over 2,900 responses. That's pretty good data right there. And the poll had three options. One, I love all the cheering in class now. Two, I prefer chill and reserved. Three, I like both. Depends on the class, really. Well, the number one response was the first one. I love all the cheering in class now, with 48%. 10% voted for I prefer chill and reserved, and 42% I like both. Depends on the class, really. So I think that says a lot. Now, I tried to separate these comments into just the pros and then just the cons and read them to you sort of one and then the next, but that proved way too complicated. I would have had to, I don't know, make a Google sheet or something out of it. So I'm going to read you some comments in no particular order, pros and cons, all just mixed in here. These comments just kind of stood out to me. This is when the glasses, come on, older dancer, thank you very much. Okay, we got Deborah.Garrett. I've noticed this in some classes, and it's so over the top. How sincere can one be when they're screaming and falling to the ground? So glad my dance classes are still old school and give a nice round of applause after each group goes. We got kinder.dance.kate. I like the second, and that's the version of me, going crazy, because they're engaged. I lose my dancers if they can't react. That's very interesting. There were a lot of comments like that from dance teachers where it kind of feels like that is the way these days, because if it's not the way, then the dancers are not going to be engaged. It's what they're seeing on social media. They're anticipating this. It's almost like their attention span goes away in this day and age of devices. They need to be constantly having something going on to take their focus, and watching dancers perform isn't enough sometimes. They need to be like fully immersed to be present in class and not lose their focus. Kirby_dance. I started taking dance classes again, and it's actually really fun how hype everyone is. People are so shy, but boost their confidence and watch them shine. The energy really elevates. Sophie.mj.arab. I grew up with two. It's mostly prevalent with commercial styles. As someone who's been pretty shy my whole life, I found it comforting. Like there's this sense of camaraderie, even if I don't know people in the class, just dancers hyping up dancers. DJ Glazer, as a teacher, I love when they hype each other. I can see it lifts them up and it's a great thing. A_T_Zara. This annoys me so much. I want to really get in the emotional space of the song and movement. _Matthew.James. I think it makes sense depending on the style. If it's commercial or hip hop, then you can hype your friends up all you want. But if it's a more traditional style like ballet, contemporary, or lyrical, then it's about being professional and treating the discipline the same way it's always been treated. I, Cherry Lee. I actually think being able to perform in front of a large hollering crowd, which can actually happen in a live performance, is training. So if it is distracting, then it's probably because you haven't mastered performance. Now, that's an interesting comment. Am I going to be responding to these comments individually? I thought I might just read them. Well, I don't know if I agree with this one wholeheartedly. Uh, and this will tap into what I might say a little bit later. But to me, class has become performance so often. There's a difference between performance and training. And I just don't know that if somebody in class who is taking the class to train and gets distracted by all the hollering means they haven't mastered performance. I don't think that's true for everybody. It's John Carlton. I love the conversation that you're bringing. Truthfully, in my beginner and intermediate classes, it's a rule to cheer whether you like something or not. I do this mainly for two reasons. One, I want my students to be able to focus under pressure. Two, you practice dancing more full out, unknowingly, with the support of your peers. That's a good practice to keep. I always let my students know it's okay to fuck up, especially in the beginner stages. The brain needs time to adjust to this new type of learning. It will get better with more practice of focus. Small underscore Eunice. One, it feels more respectful, and when you're the one dancing during two, it makes it hard to focus. Like, shut up, I can't think. Then they also only will scream for the one girl, so that makes everyone else feel bad. So yeah, just sitting in silence is better. Who's the underscore owner? Like, honestly, good for the people who want to cheer, but I personally find it so annoying because they are shouting over the music that we literally just learned the dance to. So please be quiet and let us film with the music. And it's even worse when no one cheers for them and they are, bruh, why did no one cheer for me? Because we don't want to distract the rest. I get hyping up at the start and the end, but please don't scream during the dance. Emily underscore Adams 84. I prefer quiet when I'm trying to concentrate on something. I once went to a dance class that did the cheering thing and I knew it wasn't for me. Shanice B. Movement. Honestly, I prefer observance over the shouting most times. Sometimes it's obnoxious because it's being done out of habit and that's not true support. Car Fabulous 78. Those videos are so distracting. I don't know who started that, but I preferred when offstagers watched silently, respectfully. Flower Child XXO. I get the encouragement, but it's so annoying and distracting. It just shows how much the competition world took over. X underscore Cheshire Cat 20. Cheering helps add to confidence and it makes me feel less nervous and makes me want to perform even harder. Here we got a ballet person, Ballet Bronc. It is one of my favorite things to see as a teacher. Even during Adagio, during center in ballet, those kids go wild for each other. So yeah, for all those who say this is like, a hip hop, a street style thing, not really. And that comment backs that up. And here's another comment by the Salty Sugar Plum that also backs this up. I think it's that the younger generation sees what is acceptable in the hip hop scene, but then carry those behaviors over into other classes where they are not acceptable. I've been a ballet student, professional performer, and now a ballet teacher, and this is starting to happen in my classes too. That is not proper class etiquette for certain styles of dance. It never was. Lucha Lagos. Totally. More real observation and less ego trying to get some spotlight when it's other people's turn. Ali Marie TX. I be so annoyed. I'm on the fence about it. What happened to a simple clap at the end? This one made me laugh. Short stack Zach 81. Yup, it's like Coachella all the time. Rolling eye emoji. Keith underscore Hines underscore 43889. I don't think it's a bad thing, but in some cases, like a master class or guest artist coming to teach, it's a bit much to be clapping and cheering 24/7. Even a couple of teachers I've encountered had to announce not to clap or cheer until the end. Neo Lynch. Then you had to work for the extra noises. Everyone got the applause, but you knew you improved or killed it if you got people to really react. It was motivation to work harder. Now it's more open to celebrate everybody, which is great. However, the semicircle, the screaming and shouting for everything is supporting false narratives. Everybody isn't that dope. Cut it out. Now is too much. It shouldn't be for every group of every class. What happens when one group doesn't get cheers and screams as loud as the next? That's crushing. Where is the happy medium? Now, I've said in the past when I posted videos like this onto social media with topics like these that what I'm doing is more of an observation. I'm just sharing changes. I'm less giving commentary, my opinion on the subject at hand. Today, we're going to get a little more into my opinion, my thoughts, and some commentary. The last comment I just read, I think I'll touch on first because it segues into a lot of my thoughts, which is that not everybody is great. It reminds me of so many times I, leave a dance class and I thank the teacher, and there's a line to thank the teacher. Always thank the teacher, dancers. And I'll hear the teacher tell everybody in some classes, of course, it depends on the teacher. Okay, when I should say this, when I hear a certain teacher tell everybody, great job, you were great, great, good job, great, you were great. My first thought is that does not serve a dancer, because if you're hearing the teacher tell everybody they're great, that means there's no such thing as great. I much prefer a teacher who gives productive, constructive comments to dancers. What do they need to work on? Hey, good work in class today. Would love to see you breathe a little more. Would love to see you work on remembering the cue a little bit better next time. Oh, hey, your technique, I noticed on your turnout doing this one thing, work on that next time. Whatever. If you tell everybody they're great, then again, I don't think that is productive and it doesn't serve the dancer. Because let's be honest, I mean, in today's time, this is almost kind of spilling into the area of like everybody gets a trophy now. It's like you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but the best dance teachers I had growing up were the tough ones, were the mean ones, were the ones who, like, if you got a compliment, it was like, oh my God. It was like it meant something because it wasn't an everyday thing. And when you're in class and everybody is screaming for you, the performer in me wants to know that if there is this kind of effusive reaction and there's the hollering and whatever, that it's earned, that it isn't something that is an everyday experience. It's special. And definitionally, it's not special anymore when everybody's doing it for everybody. And so for me as a dancer in class, and maybe it's because I am old school as a performer or whatever. When everybody is like screaming and screaming, it doesn't mean a lot to me when I see them screaming for everybody, even those who are, really, really struggling. And yet I also understand and I fully appreciate what a lot of the comments I just read to you illustrate and say, which is that it's just for some people, I guess this might be the answer. It depends on the dancer. Every dancer is an individual, and some people respond really well to cheering in general. It's less about if I've earned it. It's less about am I really that good? It's more just it brings up the hype in class, it brings up the energy in class, which makes you feel like more confident and just having a good time, which interestingly makes you better in your performance. I fully grant that. So I see both sides there. I think there is a part of my old school performer brain that wants to feel like I've earned the applause. It reminds me of when I go to theater these days, and a standing ovation was not a thing back in the day. It was rare. You had to earn your standing ovation. Now it seems like whenever I see a show, doesn't matter the quality of the show, nothing. At the end of the show, it's automatic. Everybody stands up and then they applaud. And that really was not a thing back in the day. Like if you got a standing ovation, it was like, oh my, it meant something. It's like watching awards shows now, like when Whitney Houston got a standing ovation at the Grammys, it was like, oh, damn, that doesn't really happen here too much. But now, who doesn't get a standing ovation, it seems? So there's a part of me in my mind that is like, how do I know if what I'm doing is even worthy of all the screaming? Because as an artist, I want to know when I am kicking ass. And it's like you trust your best dancer friend to give you, the truth. Like, you didn't really hit that today in class. You slayed a couple weeks ago, but today you were like a little bit off. But if that friend is always like, you slayed, you're amazing, you're amazing, how are you going to grow? How are you really going to get better? You need that constructive criticism. And to me, that's the part that isn't there so much anymore, that constructive criticism element. I imagine also there is an element of social media, right? The advent of devices in class and everybody filming, that has obviously with that culture brought in this element of cheering and screaming because it's now going out into the world of social media. I would bet some money, and I'm not even a gambling man at all, but I would bet some money that there is a correlation between cameras in the classroom, iPhones in class, and all the cheering and screaming. There's got to be. I mean, Millennium, for example, began posting YouTube videos and class videos about 15 years ago. And I would imagine, this sort of ushered in filming in class, posting them online. It's so share worthy. And if there's this element too where you're in the video watching a group, you're probably going to want to be on video showing support. You better trust, and I've been this guy, and it is awkward when you're in the video as someone on the sidelines watching a group and you're just kind of standing watching while everybody else is screaming. You look like a putz. You look like somebody who isn't present, like somebody who doesn't care, who's not supportive. And that's not true. There's almost a rule now on how you are supposed to be an audience in dance class. And even more so because not just the dancers in groups, but the audience, the dancers on the sidelines, just kind of minding their own business. Maybe you're marking the choreography, whatever it is you're doing. Like people will judge you on social media too, just for how you are on the side. A lot of people have commented to me that, it's a cultural thing, it's a hip hop, it's a street thing. And that's where that camaraderie, that cheering, the ciphers, and all of that, that's where it comes from. And my response to that is, I think that's amazing. And I love that. And I love that has been brought into especially some street style classes. That said, a few thoughts. One, I took those classes in the early 90s, hip hop classes with mostly black teachers. And there was none of that in class back then. Yeah, of course, those classes back then had a different energy than my jazz or lyrical modern ballet classes, of course. That said, they were far, far more about training and discipline, even in those classes, than they are today. I love that young dancers are growing up with the hype. Other elements that have changed in class, I'm not sure I love so much. We'll get into that another time for young dancers. But in this way, for young dancers, I can certainly see a lot of benefits to it. Of course, the camaraderie, the cheering for your friend, taking out any competitive aspect to it, always just like rooting your friends on is a really beautiful thing. It's just sharing in energy, it's sharing in love, it's sending good vibes. And I think that mostly serves young dancers. I would like to see, I think if there were a sort of, not remedy, but a sort of ideal situation, and this is just for me, and it might be very, very different for you, it would be for the majority of class, like 95% of class, it was just training, it was quiet, it was respect, it was watching other groups dance, it was looking intently at other dancers. What are they doing right? What can I learn from them? How can I be better? What are they doing that I think they can improve upon? Whatever it is. But just really watching and observing. And then the last couple of times you run groups is when, you go crazy and you're screaming for your people. And it's like almost there's a time and place for it, even in class. It's like designated. And then maybe it even makes that more special too, because definitionally it's more special because it isn't happening the whole time. It's not special in class if you're screaming the whole way through, but it certainly is special if you're hollering and all of that at the very end. The last couple of times you run groups, it just makes, I think, more of an imprint on the dancer. This also begs the question, I was thinking of this too with this subject, and that is, to love a performance, is it true that you have to scream for the performance? I would just challenge dancers to really take that in for a second. I mean, some of the most incredible performances I've ever seen, no matter what the art, I am just like speechless in voice and in like my movement and hands and all of it. I'm just watching like, wow, it moves you. And maybe I don't need to feel like I need to scream to show how much I think what I'm watching is amazing. There is something about the respect of just watching with just utter and full attention. Why can't that be just as powerful? I think at the end of the day, ultimately for me, I'm not really glued to screaming or not screaming. I think it depends really, like that poll. I think I fit into that 42%. It just depends on the class, really. I think sometimes it's great, and sometimes I'm not really feeling it. It doesn't really feel too authentic. No matter what, ultimately, I think it would be called on the teacher to figure out what is best for their students, no matter the age, no matter the class, the style, all the things, what does work best. I think, if anything, if this podcast has a purpose, it is maybe to make dancers and teachers just perhaps even more cognizant of the situation, and that maybe there is a better way, a more productive way to serve dancers, and only that teacher and only you, the dancer, know what that is for you.
Hey there, it wouldn't be a podcast if Editor Miller didn't pop in, and if you could hear him a little bit nasal, I'm fighting a little tiny head cold. Anyway, I have a thought that came to me, just in a nutshell, I guess. The pros to this cheering and dance class are that it boosts morale and creates a sense of community, I think, for the dancers ultimately. And one of the cons, I don't think I mentioned yet, is that it could be highly disruptive for some dancers, very much a distraction when there's all this, screaming going on. Some dancers, it may propel them to be better in their performance, and other dancers, it may have the opposite effect. And it's interesting to me that I just said performance because it does ultimately, the cheering in class, lend itself to a performance atmosphere, which is often what I talk about these days with, filming in dance class. And ultimately, dance class, in my mind, is less about performance and more about training. And I would want dancers to feel as safe as possible in dance class. And I think for many, that would be an environment that is really just focused on the work.
Again, thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed the show, it means the world if you share it, review it, and rate it. Comment, follow, subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Again, I'm on Spotify and YouTube to watch as a video, and all the other places to listen. All right, we're out.